Eala is heading to Indian Wells, and the tennis world is about to witness something it has never seen before. A 19-year-old Filipino player, ranked 31st in the world, is about to walk onto the courts of one of the biggest tournaments in tennis, and the Filipino community in California is making sure she does not walk in quietly. Tickets are selling out. Entire sections of the stadium are being booked by community groups. Tournament organizers are reportedly stunned by what they are seeing in their sales data. This is not hype. This is something real and historic, happening in real time, and it deserves to be talked about properly. If you want to stay updated on everything Eala and Filipino tennis as this tournament unfolds, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell right now. There is a lot more coming, and you do not want to miss a single update as this story develops at Indian Wells. Now, let us get into what is actually happening and why it matters so much. Eala earned her place in the main draw of the BNP Paribas Open at Indian Wells through her ranking alone. She did not need a wild card. She did not need to go through qualifying rounds. She got in because she is ranked number 31 in the world, and that ranking is the direct result of 12 months of extraordinary work and extraordinary results. Think about where she was just over a year ago. She was ranked 137th in the world. That means in roughly 12 months, she climbed more than 100 places in the global rankings by going out and beating some of the best players in women's tennis on some of the biggest stages the sport has to offer. The results that drove that climb are worth going through because they tell you exactly who this player is and what she is capable of. She reached the semifinals of the Miami Open, which is one of the biggest tournaments outside of the 4 Grand Slams. She reached the quarterfinals in Dubai, where she beat Jasmine Paolini, who was ranked number 8 in the world at the time, with a dominant 6-1, 7-6 scoreline. She reached the semifinals in Auckland. She reached the quarterfinals in Abu Dhabi. She won a gold medal at the Southeast Asian Games. She made her Australian Open main draw debut. Every single one of those results was earned on merit against quality opposition on courts where the pressure is real and the margins are small. She did not stumble into a top 30 ranking. She built it match by match, tournament by tournament, over a full year of consistent and sometimes spectacular tennis. And when her entry into Indian Wells' main draw was confirmed, something started happening in California that the tournament organizers were simply not prepared for. California is home to the largest Filipino diaspora in the entire United States. The Filipino-American community in this state is enormous. It is organized, it is passionate about sports and culture, and it has been waiting for a moment exactly like this one for a very long time. A Filipino player competing at the highest level of professional tennis in their own backyard. Not just competing, but winning. Not just winning, but breaking records, making history, and being recognized by the biggest names and biggest brands in the sport as someone genuinely special. That combination of sporting achievement and cultural pride has triggered a response from the Filipino community in California that Indian Wells simply has no historical comparison for. Fan clubs from Los Angeles, from San Diego, from Daly City are organizing group bookings and block reservations in the stadium. Entire sections are being secured by community organizations who want to recreate the kind of electric atmosphere that turned the Dubai tournament into what felt like a home match for Eala, even though she was thousands of miles from the Philippines. The secondary ticket market for sessions when Eala is expected to play has already seen prices climb well above their original face value. Some seats are reportedly selling for double what they originally cost. That is a real economic signal. That is the market telling you that demand for those seats is far higher than supply, and the demand is being driven almost entirely by one thing: people who want to be in the building to support Eala. For a tournament like Indian Wells, this is a genuinely unusual situation. Indian Wells is called the 5th Grand Slam, and that name is not given lightly. The prize pool for 2026 exceeds $9 million. The women's draw includes Aryna Sabalenka, who is the world number 1 and a multiple Grand Slam champion. It includes Iga Świątek, who has been world number 1 for extended stretches and is still one of the most complete players on the entire tour. It includes Mira Andreeva, who is the defending champion at this specific event. It includes Jessica Pegula, Coco Gauff, and essentially every major name currently active in women's tennis. This is as strong a field as you will find anywhere outside of the four slams themselves. These are players who have spent years, in some cases more than a decade, building the reputations and delivering the results that generate premium ticket demand and prime court assignments at tournaments of this level. And right there in the middle of that elite list is Eala, ranked 31st in the world, generating more ticket interest and commercial activity from a single fan community than the established and celebrated names in the field are generating from the general tennis audience. That is not a small observation. That is a complete reversal of how the commercial side of professional tennis normally works, and it is happening right now, before the tournament has even begun. Before arriving in California, Eala made a stop that set the tone for everything that is coming. She visited the Nike World Headquarters in Beaverton, Oregon, and what she found there was a statement of belief from one of the most powerful sports brands in the world. Her portrait was already displayed in the famous Nike Tunnel, which is the hallway at the headquarters where the company honors the greatest athletes it has ever worked with. The photograph chosen to represent her was taken at the Miami Open, showing her iconic reaction after reaching the semifinals, both hands on her face, tears visible, the raw and unguarded emotion of someone who had just done something that exceeded even their own expectations in the moment. The caption Nike chose for that portrait reads, "History in full bloom." Nike does not write captions carelessly. That phrase was chosen because it reflects exactly what they see when they look at Eala and her story. But there was a second photograph displayed in that tunnel, and in some ways it is even more telling than the first. It was a photo of Eala taking a selfie with Filipino fans. Think about what it means for a sports brand to hang a photograph of an athlete with her supporters at their global headquarters. They are not just recognizing her athletic achievements, they are recognizing the community that shows up for her, the fans who travel to tournaments, who fill sections of stadiums, who create the atmosphere that makes her matches different from everyone else's matches. Nike understands that the Eala story is not just about a talented tennis player breaking into the top 30, it is about a cultural movement, a community finding itself represented at the highest level of a global sport and showing up in ways that change the commercial and competitive reality of every tournament she enters. The timing of that Oregon visit was not accidental either. Eala arrived in the United States significantly earlier than she needed to, specifically to give herself extra preparation time for the conditions at Indian Wells. The California desert is a very particular playing environment. The air is extremely dry. The altitude affects how the ball travels through the air. The courts play differently from what she experienced during the Middle East swing in Dubai and Abu Dhabi, and differently again from what she encountered during the Australasia swing in Auckland and Melbourne. Getting to the United States early means getting acclimatized to the time zone properly, getting familiar with the surface and conditions through actual practice time, and arriving to the tournament physically and mentally fresh, rather than carrying the accumulated fatigue of long-haul travel in the final days before competition begins. This kind of meticulous preparation is not accidental. Eala spent 7 years training at the Rafa Nadal Academy, which is an institution built entirely on the principle that attention to detail and relentless work ethic are what separate good players from great ones. That foundation is visible in how she approaches every tournament campaign. She does not leave things to chance. She plans. She prepares for specific conditions. She puts herself in the best possible position to perform when it matters. The early arrival in the United States, the Nike headquarters visit, the extended acclimatization period, these are all pieces of a deliberate strategy. And there is one more dimension to arriving at Indian Wells as a direct entry player rather than as a qualifier that is worth understanding. When a player comes through qualifying, they arrive to the main draw having already played multiple high-pressure matches just to get there. They are carrying physical fatigue. They have spent emotional energy that the players who entered directly have been able to save. Last year in Miami, Eala came through qualifying and still reached the semifinals, which was an astonishing achievement that announced her to the wider tennis world. But it also meant she played more total matches under more cumulative stress than any of the players she beat along the way. This year at Indian Wells, she arrives fresh, rested, and with no qualifying debt in her legs. That is a significant advantage, and it is an advantage she earned entirely through the ranking points she accumulated across 12 months of exceptional results.
The opposition is genuinely formidable. Sabalenka has been one of the most dominant forces in women's tennis for several years running, and she arrives at Indian Wells as the clear favorite by most assessments. Świątek is still one of the most complete players on the tour, despite some of the challenges she has faced over the past 12 months. Andreeva is the defending champion at this specific tournament and has shown she has the game to beat anyone on her best day. any of the top seeds, on their best form, is capable of beating anyone else in the draw. That is simply the reality of competing at this level of the sport. But the conversation around Eala at Indian Wells is not really about whether she walks out and defeats the world #1 in her first match. That is not the point, and it has never been the point. The conversation is about what happens over 2 weeks when a player with her form, her profile, her fan base, and her psychological momentum enters a major tournament and starts moving through the draw round by round. Every player who has to face her at this tournament will have to do it in front of what could be thousands of Filipino fans, making noise at a level that Indian Wells has never experienced during regular draw rounds. That is a genuinely different competitive environment than anything those players have previously encountered at this tournament, and it creates real pressure that the scoreboard and the seedings do not fully capture. Tennis commentators Sam Querrey and Steve Johnson had a conversation earlier this year about Eala's drawing power being bigger than any player on the men's side in recent memory, comparing it favorably to the kind of crowd pull that only the very biggest names in the sport have historically generated. That observation has been validated at every tournament she has played in 2026. The crowds in Auckland were remarkable. In Melbourne for the Australian Open, the Filipino fans set what felt like records for the kind of atmosphere surrounding a player at her ranking level. In Abu Dhabi, the energy was electric throughout her matches. In Dubai, Coco Gauff herself walked to the net after their quarterfinal and actually addressed the crowd, thanking the Filipino fans specifically for what they brought to the tournament and for the atmosphere they created. California is a different scale entirely from any of those places. The Filipino community here is not a group of devoted supporters who made a special international trip to follow their favorite player. It is one of the largest and most established Filipino diaspora communities anywhere in the world, concentrated in a state that is hosting a major tennis tournament, with a Filipino player in the draw who has given them every reason to show up in numbers. They have been waiting for this specific combination of circumstances with growing excitement since Eala's Miami run last year made it undeniable that she could compete with and beat the best players on the tour. The tournament organizers, who are reportedly in shock at the ticket data, are not looking at a temporary spike that will settle down once the draw is released. They're looking at a permanent shift in who comes to their tournament and why, and that shift has arrived faster than anyone in their commercial department anticipated. Tennis in the United States has spent years trying to figure out how to attract more diverse audiences and to connect with communities that have not traditionally engaged heavily with the sport as spectators. Alex Eala accomplished that goal in a single season, without a marketing campaign, without a coordinated outreach strategy, and without anything beyond winning matches and carrying herself with the kind of dignity and competitive spirits that makes communities proud to have her represent them. The ticket surge, the section bookings, the secondary market prices, all of that represents real money flowing into the Indian Wells ecosystem from a fan demographic that was simply not generating that level of economic activity at tennis events before Eala started winning at this level. Every commercial touchpoint of the tournament, food vendors, merchandise, hospitality, parking, will feel the difference when thousands of Filipino fans come to the California desert to watch her play. Kim Kleisters said that Eala has to manage the reality of being treated like Michael Jordan within the Philippines. In California, she is about to discover what it feels like to have that same energy translated to American soil in a community that has been waiting to give it to her. The fans in Dubai showed what was possible when a large and organized Filipino community decided to make a tournament feel like home for her. California has more resources, more people, more organizational capacity, and more built-up anticipation. What they are planning to bring to Indian Wells is likely to exceed Dubai in ways that are difficult to fully predict from the outside. Indian Wells opens on March 4th. The countdown is essentially over. The sections are reserved, the community groups have their tickets, the fan clubs from across California are coordinating, and Alex Eala, coming directly from Nike's global headquarters in Oregon with the brand's full confidence on public display, carrying a career-high ranking that places her solidly in the top tier of the draw, is about to walk onto those purple courts at the Indian Wells Tennis Garden and experience something that this tournament, in its entire history, simply does not have a precedent for. Every player in that draw who ends up facing her on court will learn what Coco Gauff learned in Dubai. Beating Alex Eala in a tennis match is one thing. Doing it while facing Alex Eala and the entire California Filipino community simultaneously is something else altogether. The fifth Grand Slam is about to get its most electric and most unexpected atmosphere in years, and the player at the center of it all is a 19-year-old from the Philippines who climbed from 137 to 31 in the world in 12 months and is just getting started.